recording. So just a few different things. Chapter 19 is tonight, or today, I'm sorry, the rest of it, and basically after that, at the end of the period, whatever you want to call it, about 4:25, that's when we'll do the second quiz. Second quiz is just basically going to be on the other side of your Scantron, so we're using numbers 51 to 75. And so, there you go. Next week on Monday, what I'm going to do is talk a little bit more about the thought paper. I could explain it now, but basically, just start thinking about it. It's not due for almost another 3 weeks, basically. But look in your syllabus. In the syllabus, there's a huge essay question, basically. And it's probably a good idea to briefly talk about that. And so let me just show that to you real quick here. This is from the syllabus, and I'll make it a little bit bigger so you can see it. But there are no, here they are. So basically right up here you have one prompt that you guys will answer. And that prompt is located right there where it says thought paper number 1. To what extent and in what ways has the United States been able to solve its internal problems? Examine 3 major social and or economic problems in American history during this time period. Also examine the efforts of the government to address those social or economic problems. Okay, here's how you want to address that, okay? Big picture here. And next week I'll talk a little bit more about other stuff relating to this, such as avoiding plagiarism, what you want, how you want to go about trying to, I'm going to go more in depth on Monday is what I'm saying. This essay question is basically all about internal problems, okay? So what have we been talking about for the past week and a half in here? Internal problems, nation of turmoil, strikes, Gilded Age, whatever it might be. Here's what I tell the students to do. Think about this, the number 3, okay? The number 3. If you're answering one of these essay questions, you want to think of 3 different ways that you can talk about how the United States has been able to solve its internal problems. 3 ways, okay? Not 1, not 2, not, well, yeah, 3, okay, but 3 ways. And it says 3 major social or economic problems. Pick any 3 problems that we have talked about so far in this class and just start thinking about it. You don't have to write the paper this weekend and whatever, but just start thinking about it. What are 3 things that I might be able to discuss more of in the future here, okay? So there's that. Secondly, examining the efforts of the government to address those problems. Basically, your essay here, in about 3 to 4 pages, is taking 3 problems and explaining how the government has or has not addressed those problems in America's history. I don't care what you pick. You can pick almost anything that the government has tried to solve or not tried to solve. Feel free to use me as a resource. If you want to ask me questions about that, like I always get a lot of emails that say, hey, I am thinking about doing this for the thought paper. I'm thinking about focusing on these 3 problems. It doesn't hurt to ask. That's what I say. Ask early, ask often if you have a question. If you feel confident in the fact that you know what a lot of the problems are in America and you don't want to email me, cool. That's fine with me, because I got a lot of you in this class. But if you have issues or problems to thinking of things, see me before class, after class, email me. I'll be happy to be accessible to you. But just start thinking about what are 3 problems that America has had so far that I can focus on and really just dig into, all right? And so there we go with that. But just start thinking about it. I would say it's due next week, but that would be a little too much there. No, it's not due next week. Okay, so last Monday, we started talking about all the problems that America has in the 1890s. There's a crisis in the 1890s. You got people out of work. You got the Depression in 1893. You've got strikes. You've got all kinds of things going on. And you get a new political party, which we talked about a little bit, called populism. Actually, that's the name of the movement, not the political party, okay? Now in America, you guys know that we have really two major parties, right? And often what happens in American history is that there always comes along sometimes a third party that comes along to bring an issue to the forefront. Now what often happens with the third parties is that they either die out because they're not strong enough to survive on their own and they just can't get members, you know? Or one of the two major parties takes and steals their message. And that's exactly what happens in 1896. And let's talk about the politics of it. First of all, the big issue in this is you've got the Democrats versus the Republicans, right? Two-party system. What the Democrats have done by 1896 is they have stolen the message of the populists, okay? And what do the populists want, if you remember from last time? What was one thing the populists, yes sir?
A silver standard?
A silver standard, okay? Why do they want a silver standard for America's money?
So I help the farmers pay off their debts instead of inflating.
Exactly right. They wanted farmers to inflate themselves. No, they wanted the money to inflate, which basically means lower the value of the money by pegging the value of the dollar to a silver standard instead of a gold standard, and they thought that would help raise them out of debt, okay? And so the Democrats have basically stolen the populist message, and the populist party is like gone, okay? Whereas the Republicans are still the party of big business, gold, all of that kind of thing, okay? So the Democrats nominate a guy named William Jennings Bryan, also known as the Great Commoner. From the video on Monday, we learned that William Jennings Bryan has a background as a very religious guy. He uses a lot of religious metaphors in his speech. He's from the prairies, you know, he's from the farm states. And he's like a total populist, and he speaks a lot about the evils of Wall Street and the evil East and all this kind of stuff. And that's who William Jennings Bryan is, and he portrays himself as being a messenger of the people, which is what populism is, you know. It's like, I'm representing these people, and the Republicans represent those people, you know what I mean? And how many times do politicians do that, right? Politicians always do that kind of stuff. I represent you. My opponent, though, he represents the special interests, right? He represents the money, or he or she, or whatever. And that's who William Jennings Bryan is. And there he is, jumping up and down, giving a big speech. And I would not, in any way, shape, or form, write any of that stuff down. I just want you to know that he was very into his speeches, and he did a lot of theatrical kind of stuff. I would imagine he would have been fun to watch as a politician. I mean, how Obama never jumps up and down unless he's playing basketball. But this dude, straight up, well, you guys know Obama plays ball. He can ball it. But basically, William Jennings Bryan is like a preacher, you know? He's just like hellfire and brimstone, the evil of the East, the this, the that. He gives in the 1896 campaign, he goes 18,000 miles to go traverse the nation to talk to people and try to just give, and he gives sometimes as many as almost between 30 and 40 speeches in a day. That's a lot of work right there. And he just had this unlimited energy. I'm not sure what his wife was doing at that point, or his kids, but anyways, he definitely had a lot of energy. His most famous speech is called the Cross of Gold speech, and he says, "You shall not press upon I'm sorry, you shall not press down upon the brow of labor this crown of thorns. You shall not crucify mankind upon a cross of gold. And he's basically like, gold is the enemy, right? You know, if you read the Bible, and I'm reading the Bible again for the second time. Actually, I've read it 3 times, but this is my New Year's resolution. I'm a religious guy, okay? I'm not trying to, you know, I'm just being open with you guys, okay? But one of the things that Jesus does is he's very much against, if you read the Bible, he's very much against money, or he's against the misuse of money. And I wonder if William Jennings Bryan was kind of trying to take that aspect of Christianity and trying to preach to the farmers and who were mostly Christians, and a lot of the people who were mostly Christians at that point. And he's like, well, look, I mean, it's biblical to stand up for the little guy, because that's what Jesus did, you know, and he would point to all kinds of things in his speeches about that. But notice the imagery about the crown of thorns and the crucifixion of the cross of gold and all that kind of stuff. And that's what William Jennings Bryan did. As you can see here on the thing, it says 18,000 miles of campaign whistle stops. And that's what Bryan did. I can't imagine. Presidents never do that anymore, by the way. Presidents are always on TV, and now we're in the day of Twitter and social media and stuff. Presidents don't have to get out there and 18,000 miles of speeches and 30 to 40 speeches a day. President William McKinley, who the Republicans were going to nominate, and there he is. He's not exactly the most lovable guy. He didn't even campaign. Can you believe a presidential campaign where the guy doesn't campaign? He literally sat on his front porch the entire campaign. Mostly. Well, not like the whole time. But what I mean is, he wasn't out there. It was a different time back then. There's no television, you know, there's certainly no instant media and stuff like that. And so presidential campaigns were run totally different. And he didn't think he had to be out there. He let his campaign manager kind of run the propaganda show, you know. But Bryan was out there killing himself to try to get elected. William McKinley not killing himself to get elected. And of course, who funds the campaigns here? Who's the big business funding? And big business is not funding William Jennings Bryan, so William Jennings Bryan has to get out there and work, because the big businesses control the newspapers and control essentially William McKinley's campaign. So the election is kind of interesting in the 1896, and you can see it's divided along different lines, right? I mean, the northern part of the United States and the West is pretty much Republican. The heartland is Democratic. And you know what's funny about this map is it's exactly the opposite now, isn't it? The liberal Democrats are where the blue is, and the Republicans are where the red is. But I guess what I'm saying is this election is important because what it means is that with McKinley winning, and I'll get to the Wizard of Oz in a second. I got some good stuff. Now you're like, whoa, what's going on with that? No, don't worry, I'll get to that. When the Republicans win, it pretty much means the death of populism, and not only that, you have the death of the silver standard. There's not going to be any of that anymore, no talk of that. It's going to be gold standard, and it's going to be big business, essentially with more of the same, running the government, doing whatever they do in order to promote and protect their agenda. Okay, so the interests of the little guy, the populists, are not going to be part of the equation. That's all going to change though, okay, in a little while, due to something next week we call the progressive era. So there's going to be some definite changes shaking up politics. Which brings me to The Wizard of Oz, which has nothing to do with anything. I'm sure you've seen the movie. I'm sure you've seen Wicked, or you know about that. I even kind of okay, that's enough. Now, why do I bring this up? Well, the movie that was made in the 1930s for The Wizard of Oz, The original book